Hey there, welcome to episode 174 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today it's a very small part of my collection, so hopefully this will be a quick episode. Today I'm just going to be talking about one figure, and that's this brand new Wolfman figure from Neca. But before I get into that, I do just want to talk a little bit, some toy news. In my last episode, I told you a little bit about some new toys coming out and everything, and there's been some additional news since I posted that video, especially in regards to Super 7's Ultimate figures. In that last video, I told you about how there was a lot of Super 7 Ultimate figures coming out, some of them that were announced a long time ago, and they're finally, after a long delay, just starting to ship out to customers, and also how there have been some new ones just recently announced. So I buy most of my Super 7 Ultimate figures from Big Bad Toy Store. And I currently have 2 Conan figures and a Thundercats monkey and figure in my pile of loot. So it's just a matter of me hitting that ship it now button, and then those things will be sent out to me. So I'm going to have a bunch of Ultimates to review for you guys soon. But another thing I talked about in that video was the fact that Ultimates are coming out so frequently now, and that they seem to be going up in price. I was questioning whether I should really be collecting any of these lines as a completist. Like, even with the Ninja Turtles line, I have quite a few Ninja Turtle Ultimates. I have all 4 Turtles. I have Bebop and Rocksteady, Baxter Stockman, Mutagen Man. But that's kind of where the line is going to end for me. There's already like 2 or 3 additional waves of Ninja Turtle figures that have been announced. But it's more of the obscure characters. And I wasn't super into Ninja Turtles growing up. It came around a little too late for me to get super deep into the brand. So, you know, with Ninja Turtles, I always knew I was going to kind of stop at some point. Another line I collect is the Conan figures, but there's only so many Conans they can make. You know, Conan in a couple of different outfits, 1 or 2 villains, and then the line is going to end. And even then, I have not been a completist. I passed on the entire Wave 1 figures. So, you know, that's another one I can manage. But 2 of their lines are Transformers and G.I. Joe. And those are 2 of their, like, more recently announced lines. They haven't actually produced any figures yet, so I don't have any of their Ultimate Transformers or G.I. Joes in hand to really judge how good they are. The prototypes they've shown look really good, so I'm hopeful for the figures. But, you know, there's definitely been some Ultimate figures that have been disappointing and haven't lived up to the prototypes. For example, just recently, I talked about in that last episode how I had pre-ordered the Thundercats Tigra figure because the prototype looked so good. But then now that the figure is starting to arrive in hand and people are posting pictures of it online, I thought, no, I don't like the paint job. Is way off from the prototype. So I ditched it. I canceled my pre-order. So anyway, with Transformers, right now there are 3 waves announced. I've got them all on pre-order. And I'm starting to wonder, like, should I maybe whittle this down and just start picking my favorite characters the same way I do with, like, Ninja Turtles? Because I was kind of approaching it as a completist. And the same thing with G.I. Joe. But anyway, so since I shot that video, about a day or 2 later, Super 7 announced their 3rd wave of G.I. Joe Ultimates, and they went up for pre-order. And they look really, really good. I pre-ordered them all, so all 4 of them are on pre-order at Big Bad Toy Store right now. Now, fortunately, I could always cancel those pre-orders. I've got probably a good year plus before those figures are actually being shipped out, but I didn't want to risk missing out on them, so I pre-ordered them all. The one I'm most excited about, so I think there was Scarlet, who looks good. But I've got a ton of Scarlet figures in my collection. And, you know, I've got a 6-inch Scarlet figure from the G.I. Joe Classified line that I really like. So that does diminish the need for this 6-inch Scarlet from Super 7 a little bit. Same as Storm Shadow they showed. He looks awesome as well. But, you know, I've got a 6-inch Storm Shadow from the Classified line. There's another one coming soon in his more classic outfit, which is going to be even better. Plus I have a ton of 3 3/4 inch Storm Shadows. So this new one looks cool, but, you know, could I live without it? Probably. And then lastly, there's the Cobra Trooper. And again, he looks incredible. Really nice sculpt. However, I really liked the Cobra Troopers that we got last year in the Classified line. I bought 3 of them. I also really like I have a ton of Cobra Troopers in the 3 3/4 inch line, including Super 7's own reaction figure line, which they made the figures in all the different skin tones, and they're cartoon accurate too. So having all that stuff does kind of diminish the need for this $75 Ultimate version. Not to say I won't get it, but you know, these are things I have to take into consideration. But the fourth figure in Wave 3 is Doc, and I'm really excited about Doc. He's a character that he's one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters. I maybe didn't appreciate him that much when I was young, but he's a character that I've really kind of grown to love. And he's one of the earliest G.I. Joes, released in 1983, which was like the second year of the Real American Hero brand. And he's really been overlooked as far as getting updated figures. Many characters, even not super popular ones, have had multiple figures over the years, like 6, 7, 8 figures. Doc has really only been remade once, and that wasn't even a very good version of Doc. If you watched my episode a couple weeks ago, I did an episode just about my Marauder Task Force figures, which are 3 3/4 inch G.I. Joe-like figures that you can customize. And I talked about in that video how, you know, once the G.I. Joes had switched to the modern 4-inch style, I really wanted a redo of Doc, because they never remade Doc since 1983. They did finally make a new Doc in the modern era, but it didn't quite live up to what I wanted it to be. He was a bunch of reused parts. He just wasn't very good. So I attempted to make my own Doc with Marauder Task Force. Not very well. So, you know, I've been still wanting a nice new Doc figure, and this one that they've shown from Super 7 looks amazing. Like, he's got multiple head sculpts, tons of cool accessories. I'm super excited about him. So even if I were to cancel all my G.I. Joe Ultimates figures pre-orders, Doc would be the one figure I would definitely have to get. I'm probably still going to get them all, but yeah, Doc is, I think, the best one they've shown to date. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Another thing, just to touch on Transformers a little bit. So I'm kind of in the same headspace. Do I need to collect all of them? You know, should I cancel some of my pre-orders? Should I maybe wait until I get Wave 1 in hand and then kind of make a decision based on the quality of those? Well, right around the time that Super 7 announced that they were going to start making, you know, 6, 7-inch Transformer Ultimates figures, they wouldn't transform, but they were going to be cartoon accurate figures, which is what I was looking for, what I've been hoping for years. Hasbro, oddly enough, announced their own line of non-transforming Transformers called the Red Series, which is robot enhanced design. And it just seemed a little weird that they were choosing to do this right around the same time that they licensed that out to Super 7, so the two lines would kind of be competing. And thus far, I've been buying all of their G1 Red Series figures. I have Megatron, I have Optimus Prime, I have Starscream. So these are all characters that I currently have on pre-order with Super 7, and yet I already have versions from Hasbro. And so again, it just seems, are these figures going to be a little redundant? You know, the $30 versions from Hasbro are pretty good. Do I really need the $75 versions from Super 7? I don't know. But anyway, what I wanted to mention today is that Hasbro just announced 2 new figures from the Red Series that are coming up. And it's Galvatron and one of my personal favorites, Shockwave. And based on these kind of, you know, promotional images, I think they look awesome. If the Red Series continues to give me figures like this, it really might diminish my need to buy those characters from Super 7, because the price point is way better with Hasbro and they look really nice. The kind of the problem with the first few Red Series figures is that they were a little undersized. Some of the plastic they used was a little soft and gummy. So if they correct some of those early problems, I think that line has a lot of potential and could maybe save me a lot of money. Anyway, enough about all that stuff. Let's talk about the Wolfman. So I am a big fan of the Universal Monsters in general, but the Wolfman has always been my favorite since I was a little kid. Now, I couldn't tell you when exactly I saw the Wolfman. This original movie, which the box has got kind of the original movie poster on there, which is really cool. So the movie came out in 1941, so long before my time. And I'm not sure when I first saw it. But the Wolfman was kind of my favorite monster long before I ever saw this based on other media. So, for example, there was a movie when I was a kid called The Monster Squad, which was kind of like the Goonies having to fight all the Universal monsters. So Frankenstein, Dracula, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Mummy, the Wolfman, they were all in it. And I really liked the Wolfman from that. those Universal Monster characters were always, you know, in shows like, say, Scooby-Doo and stuff. Even though they were different versions of those characters, I always liked the werewolf best. So, yeah, I'm not sure when I first saw the Wolfman. But anyway, even once I did see those movies, he remained my favorite. But, like, yeah, I've loved just the idea of werewolves, and especially the Wolfman, since I was a little kid. Now, when I can confirm I saw not just the Wolfman, the original 1941 movie, but all of the Universal Monster movies. Because I think I'd seen some of them here and there on TV, maybe not in full. But back in 2004, I was working at Blockbuster Video. There was a new Van Helsing movie coming out with Hugh Jackman, which wasn't very good, by the way. But leading up to that, Universal put out some nice new box sets of all their Universal Monsters. So I bought all of them. So here's the Wolfman. I also have Frankenstein, Dracula, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Invisible Man. I have like 6 of these box sets, and they're all really nice. And besides having the original movie, they've also got like some documentaries, some behind the scenes stuff, little featurettes, and they also have all the sequels for these particular characters. So in this Wolfman box set, not only do I get the Wolfman, but I also get Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London. Now, mind you, those movies are kind of separate from the Universal Monsters. They don't involve the Wolfman. They were a werewolf, and they're kind of forgettable. They're just kind of padding this set. The only other movie on here that's really worth knowing about is Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which was the second appearance of the original Wolfman, where he first kind of crossed over with one of the other Universal Monsters. Now, the original Wolfman, who was played by Lon Chaney Jr., in all of the Wolfman movies, he's the only one to have done that. Like, Boris Karloff famously played the Mummy and famously played Frankenstein. But as the movies went on, they cast different actors, including Lon Chaney, to play like Frankenstein. Same as Dracula. Bela Lugosi is most famous for playing Dracula in the first movie, but they changed actors as the movies went on. But Lon Chaney Jr. is the only guy that ever played the Wolfman. So he played him in the original, he played him in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and then he played him in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, and I have those movies on the Frankenstein and Dracula sets. So that's really cool that Lon Chaney really he's the only person you associate with this character. He even played him one more time in they did a series of kind of comedy movies where Abbott and Costello meets the Wolfman, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and so Lon Chaney Jr. even played Wolfman in that movie. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And one of the reasons why I love the Wolfman and the Lon Chaney Wolfman, the Universal Monsters Wolfman, so specifically is because the makeup was kind of human. Like, you look at this guy and he kind of looks like he could just be a guy with like a really out of control beard or something. As much as I do love werewolves of all types, I much prefer this humanoid look rather than, the werewolves that you see in movies like Underworld and things like that, where they grow these full snouts and they look like just wolves on their hind legs. I like the kind of more mutated, more man than wolf type of Wolfman, which is what the original Wolfman was. So yeah. Anyway, I've wanted toys of the Wolfman, forever. There were some Universal Monster figures when I was a kid, but they were out so early, like very, very early 80s. I was born in 78. I think I had some of those Remco Universal Monster figures, but they didn't survive very long. So yeah, I can't remember if I ever had the Wolfman from the Remco line. But after those figures, there really wasn't any officially licensed Wolfman toys that were easy to come by through most of my childhood. Around the time that Universal Monsters were kind of making a comeback, in around the early 2000s with the release of Van Helsing and stuff, I did start getting some Wolfman figures. So I think the first one I got was this Mego doll here. So this is like an 8-inch doll with the cloth clothing. And, it's not a great likeness to the Lon Chaney Wolfman. He's a little more generic. But, still a cool figure. I like this guy. But I don't typically collect, this Mego-style doll. This is kind of an oddity in my collection. So I still would have preferred something a little more traditional. Another figure I have is the Wolfman Funko Pop. Now, again, this is a cute figure. I think it looks cool. I'm glad I have it. But again, if this were the only Wolfman in my collection, it's just not a very good representation. It's a little too cutesy and, you know, kind of a novelty item. I would still prefer to have an actual Wolfman action figure. Now, I do have some of Super 7's 5 points of articulation reaction figures. Now, I do have the original reaction figure Wolfman, but he's pinned up on my wall over there, and I didn't feel like taking him down. He's in his more traditional colors, you know, the kind of 2 shades of green. But I do have that exact same figure here again in kind of glow-in-the-dark colors, so you get an idea of what that figure looks like. So this is a little better. You know, it is more of a traditional action figure, 5 points of articulation. The sculpt is, you know, pretty basic, but, you know, you can definitely tell it's the Wolfman. So yeah, I've got this guy in 2 colors. I finally did get what I would call a real action figure, like a detailed 6-inch screen-accurate Wolfman figure. And that was around 2010, I want to say. And that's this guy here, which it's a nice figure, but what you're looking at is actually the Wolfman based on the remake movie. So this is based on Benicio del Toro's Wolfman makeup, not Lon Chaney Jr.'s. So it's a cool figure, and I like that they stuck with that kind of humanoid design. I was a little worried when I first heard they were going to remake Wolfman that they were going to kind of go with the more fully digital, you know, man-wolf. But nope, they went with practical makeup Wolfman. And yeah, I think it's a cool figure, but it's still not that traditional Lon Chaney Wolfman that I always wanted. Anyway, NECA has finally given me that. Not to say this is the first Wolfman figure, but it's the first one that's been kind of easily attainable. This was a figure, this was $50, which is still kind of pricey, but the price of toys has just been skyrocketing. Like probably 6 months ago, this would have been a $40 figure, but yeah, everything's just going up in price these days. Anyway, I'm really excited about this. So it's got that really cool packaging with the original movie poster on there. On the side, you get a shot of the toy, a couple more shots of the toy on the back. And it's got this Velcro flap on the front. Get another shot of the toy there. And there you see the figure inside. And we're going to take a look at him out of the package in a second. You know, I've had this guy now for a couple of days, and I haven't opened him because I've been waiting to do it on camera for you guys. But yeah, one thing that's really, really cool about this figure is one of the things I like best about the Wolfman is the man part of him. Like Lon Chaney Jr. I thought was great as Larry Talbot, the guy who turns into the Wolfman. And this way you actually get an option to display him. You see here there's an alternate head of Larry Talbot, and there's alternate hands and even alternate feet. So you can take out the Wolfman's kind of claw hands and claw feet, and you can make him Larry Talbot. So that's really great because, you know, I always thought if I were to ever get a Larry Talbot figure, it would have to be something I'd have to buy separately. So a Wolfman figure and a Larry Talbot. But yeah, so the fact that you can kind of swap them out in one figure, I think is great. I'm really looking forward to it. So yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's pop this guy open and take a look at him. Okay, so here is the Wolfman outside of the packaging. And my first impressions are this guy is pretty cool. I like him quite a bit. He's got a lot of nice sculpted detail there. Primarily in the clothing, like I really like all these folds and wrinkles that you see in the clothes. It really lends some realism to them. And the paint job really helps to bring out, kind of accentuate all those little sculpted details, because it looks like there's kind of a wash. So the shirt is kind of like an army green, but it's got like, it looks to have this kind of black wash over top of it that brings out those details. And then the pants are kind of a light brown. And then they have maybe a darker brown wash over there that helps bring out all those details. And then the face, yeah, he looks great. So he's still got that humanoid appearance. You know, he doesn't have a big crazy wolf snout and everything. This is how I like my Wolfmen to look. And yeah, the details in the eyes and everything, that looks really good. Yeah, I'm really impressed with that. I kind of thought Wolfman had pointier ears, but maybe not. I was a Wolfman. I was the Wolfman for Halloween when I was a kid. And I just remember I had pointier ears, so maybe that's what I'm basing that on. But anyway. But yeah, it looks cool. Let's see his hands here. So he's got kind of the furry hands on top, black kind of nails or claws, then a kind of a lighter tone on the palm of the hands there, and then the feet. Now the first thing I thought when I took him out of the box is that he does kind of have what you call cankles, I guess, in that he doesn't really have much in the way of ankles. His calves seem to just run right into his feet, so he's very, very fat ankles. And it looked a little weird, and so I quickly checked to see if the same issue was present on his human feet, but it doesn't appear to be. So maybe that was the actual design of the costume. Maybe he really did have cankles in wolf form. But another thing I noticed, so he comes with a display base, a very, very small display base, as you'll notice here. Just a small little disc. Like, this is smaller than the display base you get for most 3 3/4 inch action figures. And it's just got one little peg there for him to stand on. But it seemed to help. It was keeping him up. Because I was just having trouble getting him to stand out of the box. And that's because I noticed his feet are not flat. So I think the Wolfman stood more on his toes, like so. So I don't know, in Wolfman mode, you would maybe push his feet back a little bit and he'd kind of stand just on his toes like that. And if that's the case, maybe they actually should have had an articulated joint there. Otherwise, maybe they should have just given him flat feet, because it does seem to make it a little difficult for him to stand. So let's look at his articulation. So you see he does have that joint on the ankles there, so you can move the feet forward and backwards. There's a swivel at the pant leg, which makes sense because that's where you can pull out the feet and give him his human feet. You get joint there on the knee, it's a single joint, but you can get a pretty good angle on there. And then his legs, yeah, so you can get a pretty good split going there. And he can kick pretty far forward, not so far backward, but you can still get him in a pretty good running stance. He spins at the waist. Not a ton though, but most humans can't really spin 360 degrees or anything, so he spins enough. Then his shoulders, so you see he's got like a ball joint on his shoulder, so he can get his arms pretty far out to the side, up and down, forward, back. Single jointed elbow, so he can get about that much range of motion on the arm. And then the hands, he's got a swivel joint there, so you can also spin those around. And then the head is a ball joint. Now, I'm not sure, it looks like maybe the head and the neck are separate, so you can probably turn him at the base of the neck, and then you could probably also turn his head separate, but right now they seem to be pretty much moving in unison. But yeah, it looks good. And he feels good. I'll be honest, like, NECA figures kind of scare me. They always feel kind of delicate, and I often avoid NECA figures. Like, they make a lot of really nice looking movie figures, from Predator to Terminator, all those kind of big action movies, but they have a tendency to break. The only NECA line that I have kind of really bought a lot of figures from is their animated Ninja Turtles, their movie Ninja Turtles, and they look great, but sometimes the joint is kind of stiff, and then I just tend to leave it. I'm like, you know what, I'm not even going to mess with it because it feels like it's going to break if I put any pressure on it. This guy, I'm not feeling that. Like, he feels good. So, yeah, all the joints move pretty easily right outside of the box. You don't have to heat anything up. Nothing, is giving me too much resistance. So yeah, looks good. All right, so I'll just try and stand him back up here. Now I do notice that his pants are brown and his shirt is green. I'm not sure if that's film accurate or not, because the film is in black and white, so you never really get to see the actual colors of the Wolfman. But previous versions, like you see here, like this version, he's got the green on green. The reaction figure I have pinned to the wall is green on green. Obviously this guy is not a good comparison. And then the Funko Pop. I would still kind of describe that as green on green. Definitely not brown pants. Anyway, who really cares, I guess, when it comes to a black and white movie? This looks good. I'm glad that he didn't show up in like acid wash blue jeans or yellow pants or something unexpected. Green, brown, these kind of earthy tones, that really seems to work. Now, speaking of black and white, the This figure here I actually bought from my local comic book shop, Strange Adventures, and I didn't expect to. When this figure was first announced, I pre-ordered it on Big Bad Toy Store. That was several months ago, and I actually canceled it, in part because the previous two Universal Monster figures that NECA had showed was they've already done the Frankenstein and the Mummy, and they released, I think, the colored versions first, but then they released black and white versions. And I was kind of leaning towards the black and white versions. And I think I might collect this line in black and white. That's kind of where I was leaning. I thought especially the Mummy looked better in black and white. So at this point, only the color Wolfman is available on Big Bad Toy Store. So I canceled it thinking I would maybe get the black and white one when that one eventually goes up for pre-order. However, you know, canceling a pre-order is a whole different story than walking into a store and actually being able to pick up the box and hold it in hand and know, like, I could take this home with me right now rather than wait months. You know, even when I ship something from Big Bad Toy Store, it usually takes about a month before it gets up to me here in Canada. So yeah, when I saw this thing in the shop and just how good he looked in color, I kind of thought, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger on this. And now I think this will probably dictate that I'm going to buy them all in color. It'd be kind of weird, I think, to have half of my Universal Monsters in black and white and half in color. But who knows? I don't know. He looks good. I think the black and white one looks good too. There have only been a couple of promotional images shown for that one. And yeah, it does look really sharp. But yeah, who's to say which one's better? Anyway, let's take a look at Wolfman's accessories. So as far as his Wolfman-ness goes, he's really only got one accessory, which is this angrier face. And so it looks pretty good. It's got all that same nice painted detail as the other one. Let's kind of do a comparison. So yeah, this one's definitely a little bit more of a neutral. Still looks kind of angry though. But yeah, this is like maybe his ready to attack face. It's interesting that they've got him looking off to the side. But yeah, I don't know if that would look better if he was maybe looking forward. But anyway, they're both nice head sculpts. I think I would probably display him with this one as the default head sculpt. But yeah, I'd say they're equally nice. Couple other things he has here, which is really cool, is he has this bear trap, which in the movie I believe he gets caught in one of these. So that's pretty cool that they've added this in there. That's a fun little add-on. And it looks good. You know, even the paintwork on this, it's got a real metallic-y looking feel to it, even though it's just, you know, plastic. Now, the other pieces he has here allow him to become Larry Talbot. So he's got his human hands that we can put on in place of his monster hands. He also has one additional hand, which is a gripping hand, which makes sense because they also included his cane with the wolf head on top, which is a really cool item that he picks up early on in the movie. The movie starts out with him kind of moving back to his childhood home, and he ends up buying this cane. And I believe it's the woman that tells him the story of the curse of the werewolf when he buys the wolf-headed cane, which kind of sets up the whole, you know, plot that is to come. So anyway, that's a cool accessory. I'm glad they included that. And I've kind of already showed you, but he also has his human feet. Now, I will say one thing that kind of bothers me about this, or not so much bother, like I'm glad he came with this, because if you wanted to, say, display him after he transformed into the Wolfman, this is what he'd be looking like, because his shoes would tear off and he'd have bare feet. But if I wanted to, say, display him as Larry Talbot early on in the movie when he's going to buy his cane and stuff, I don't like that the only option is to have him walking around barefoot. I wish there was another set of feet that maybe continued the pants and then had a shoe. You know, even if that might cause a problem because you've got the cuff on the pants here. But man, even if it's not film accurate, I'd rather give him a shoe with maybe a sock ankle or something. Just I wish that was an option, because I am stoked to have a Larry Talbot option to display, but I don't love the barefoot Larry Talbot. Anyway, and here is the Larry Talbot head, which is great. It's a really nice likeness to Lon Chaney Jr. So I think they've done a really good job there. And I like the expression. Like, he looks a little worried, a little concerned, which is often how he looked throughout not just the original Wolfman, but through most of his appearances. He was always kind of stressed out about turning into the Wolfman again and how he was going to rid himself of the curse and all that stuff. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job there. I think that looks great. So I'm not sure how easy it is if I need to apply heat or anything to change out these parts, but I think I'm going to do that now, and then we'll pop back and we'll take a look at him as Larry Talbot. Okay, so here he is as Larry Talbot. That was actually very quick and easy to do. No heat was required. I was able to change him out entirely in about 20 seconds or so. So that's great. Yeah, like I said, he looks good. You know, the hands, they fit in there nice and snug. He looks great being able to hold his cane. It's just that there's that one issue with the bare feet that I don't love. But, you know, that's really the only complaint I have about this figure. Otherwise, I think he looks pretty great. Now, maybe I should have done the comparison before I transformed him, but here he is next to the 2010 Wolfman. So, you know, looks pretty good. I don't really know if there's much more to say. I guess I would say I recommend this figure. It's a really nice Wolfman. The fact that you get, you know, his human form and his wolf form, you know, a variety of expressions. You get the little bear trap as an added accessory. It's really cool. I'm not sure if they're going to put out a accessory pack for him, because I don't really know what more you would need. But they have done that for both Frankenstein and the Mummy, because all these figures retail for the same price. So I think they're, you know, 35 to 40 bucks American, 50 bucks Canadian here for me. And then they released a separate set for Frankenstein that includes his, I don't know what we'll call it, the bed that he is created on, with the straps around his hands and feet. So that's a pretty cool accessory. And then also for the Mummy, they made a separate pack of him with the sarcophagus, which really kind of completes the whole set. So yeah, so far for the previous two figures, they released an accessory pack. I really don't know what the Wolfman would need besides his cane and his human parts here, but yeah, I think it's a great figure, and yeah, I'll be curious to see if they do have that accessory pack, and I'll be curious to see if I cave and buy this in black and white as well. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now, I think. So that is my review of NECA's new Wolfman action figure. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Please leave me comments below. It's very much appreciated. You know, I really want your support in growing the channel. So yeah, any of that stuff is very much appreciated. Please like, subscribe, comment. And I'll be back soon with another video, so I'll see you then. Until then, have a good one. Ciao.